So, this is another theory that's been floating around the fandom. Some people believe that the Lilia we see isn't what he actually looks like, and he has a true form that looks more like Malleus. Taller, longer hair, doesn't look like a 12-year-old with a Fortnite addiction. He's making himself look cute and little on purpose. For what purpose exactly is unknown. Most people are thinking so people will underestimate him, but really, I haven't seen, a full consensus on that. While I can't say for surezies why this is a thing, I'm fairly certain it came about because some artists were drawing Lilia as being older looking, longer hair, what I literally just described 5 seconds ago. This has been going on basically since Insomnia was added to JP, but I feel like this has blurred the lines of canon and fandom for whatever reasons, and people argue about whether it's true or not. Could it be possible? Absolutely. Anything's possible. But let's take a look at the evidence for and against this theory, headcanon, whatever you want to call it. There's two pieces of evidence I see get cited the most by people. One is that Lilia is older, so why is he small? Now, this is objectively true. Lilia is way older than the other students. This has been stated multiple times in canon, but we'll touch on this more a little later. The second part is that the majority of Lilia's clothing is oversized. The sleeves on his lab coat are super long, his jacket for his dorm uniform is super big on him. Even though it's not being worn properly, there's a lot of fabric on the ground. A reason Lilia's clothes could be bigger is because he's not usually short. He just didn't want to have to buy a whole new wardrobe, which honestly valid. So the clothes we see that are oversized are just his normal clothes. Hi, Editor Mari. It's cold, I'm running my space heater, don't worry about it. Anyway, so one of the things that I forgot to record and point out was one piece of evidence that I've only seen one other person say. In one of Malleus's lesson lines, he's like, oh, there's a picture of Lilia in this textbook. And the fact that no one brings up hey, why is Lilia in our textbook? Might imply that he can shapeshift and he's in a different form that only Malleus really knows. And so Malleus recognizes him and he's like, oh yeah, that's Lilia. But then no one else says anything because they just don't recognize it as Lilia, which I don't really have a rebuttal for. But what about the evidence against? First off, while I mentioned a moment ago that Lilia is older, sometimes people are just short. I don't know what to say. I'm 28 at the time of this video, and I'm 4'11", which is 150 centimeters for people not in the US. My older brother is 35, and he's 4'9" or 4'10". He's shorter than me. One of my aunts is in her 50s and she's 4'10". Age and height don't always correlate with each other. So while yeah, Lilia's way older, height should never be used as an indicator for age because short people exist. And vice versa, tall kids exist. My best friend in middle school was already 6'2". That didn't make him older than me, we were still 12. Now, let's talk about clothes. Lilia has said before in canon that some of his clothes are oversized because he thinks it's cute. Not because he can change his appearance, but just because he thinks it's a look. He even notes that his clothes being oversized causes issues, and yet he keeps them because he likes the aesthetic. Could he be lying? Possibly. But I think there's one really big piece of evidence against Lilia having an alternate form that I think a lot of people don't really talk about, and that piece of evidence makes me think that Lilia is telling the truth. Hi, Editor Mari. I feel like I didn't really explain my point very well in the first time that I recorded this, so you're getting a redo. So in Lilia's alchemy vignette, Epple, another short king, is about to get his ass handed to him by some bullies, but Lilia steps in and everything's fine. Lilia and Epple are talking afterwards, and Lilia is like, oh hey, well let me give you some pointers on how to fight short. And the way he talks and the fact that he is used to fighting short, to me implies that he cannot change his height, because if he could, why wouldn't he? Are there some advantages to being short? I guess. But for the most part, I feel like if you were in a fight, you would want to make yourself at least a little bit bigger. Lilia is taller than I am, but he's still short. And if you are short like I am, you know 100% what I'm talking about, but for people who are obviously taller than me, because everyone is taller than me, being short fucking sucks. I really can't get around it other than it sucks. I have to climb on kitchen counters to get stuff out of the shelves. I still can't reach things with a step stool. I am that short. I think I speak for a lot of short people when I say, if we can make ourselves taller, we 100% could. I guess you could make the point with Lilia that oh, well maybe he's staying short because he wants his enemies to underestimate him so he has an easier time winning fights. But on the one hand, Lilia is really, really strong. Even if he was tall, I think he would still be very strong. And two, If he just wanted enemies to, like, underestimate him and kind of get drawn into a sense of false security, he wouldn't necessarily have to stay short the entire time. Like, he could just make himself bigger if he was able to change his height, but because Lilia is so used to having a fight and, while being short, to me that implies that he cannot change his height. Honestly, I believe that little mention in his alchemy vignette disproves him having a true form. He's just a short king, guys. He's a short king. I do think it's really fun to explore the idea of him not usually looking like that in fanon, but ultimately, I really don't think Lilia has a true form. I think there's very strong evidence against it, but ultimately, it's up to you guys to decide if you believe in it or not.